Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. It seems very likely that an EV tax credit bill will pass, and it will likely closely resemble what has been proposed. The latest update we had on the Cybertruck waiting list was already over 1 million pre-orders. This was recently announced to demonstrate all the extra demand the launch of the Ford F-150 has created. But what's going to happen with the tax credits when the starting price of the Cybertruck is under $30,000? Did you hear that? The Cybertruck in the US would now start at under $30,000. This is obviously for the rear-wheel drive single motor version, but it's still a Cybertruck with air suspension, bulletproof panels, indestructible glass, and everything else you get from your everyday Cybertruck. But really, when the price drops suddenly 25%, which is exactly what these tax credits will do, at least for the single motor version, the price drop will be 20% for the dual motor, and if the tax credits limit is $80,000, then the tri-motor even qualifies too. Anyway, with these price drops of around 20%, it doesn't mean the demand will increase 20%. This is an inelastic good, which means when the price drops, the demand increases exponentially higher. At $30,000, you attract a whole new level of consumer. Some people just simply can't afford $40,000 for a car, no matter how many cool features the car has. But $30,000 is a lot more affordable, and consumers would be willing to make other sacrifices too in order to obtain the product. Perhaps they won't go on vacation for a while, or postpone a renovation on their house. Sacrifices can be made for a lot of people in order to obtain a Cybertruck. Of course, when they factor in the cost savings on fuel and servicing too, then they might justify even further ways of affording the Tesla pickup truck. It really is possible that this new price point could actually double the demand for the Cybertruck. Don't believe me? Well, let's look at some numbers. Unfortunately, the only graph I could find that shows how sales are distributed between each price point was dated back to 2013, but it's enough to simply illustrate my point. This graph shows that only 7% of sales are $40,000 or more, but 19% are $30,000 or more. However, the average car price has increased about $6,000 to $7,000 since then. In other words, I think it's likely that over 30% of new car sales are above $30,000, and more like 12% above $40,000. That would mean the market for cars under $30,000 is about 3 times the size of $40,000. According to this, the Cybertruck would now appeal to almost 3 times as many consumers. This is what I mean by reducing the price appeals to that much larger consumer base. But like I was saying, it is probably also becoming more known that Teslas simply cost less to run, and therefore the consumer can justify moving to a higher price bracket than they would previously, which again would even further add to demand exponentially. In all honesty, going by this graph alone, the tax credits make a broader consumer appeal to possibly even 3 to 4 times as many new auto customers. There are also a lot of other features that still haven't been announced too. We actually don't know all the features this car will have yet. We haven't received a full specification, not to mention whatever new features Tesla have thought of in the last 1.5 years since its unveil. For example, we're now hearing that there'll be a solar roof option, which appears to be a very popular feature. On an earnings call, someone asked if there'll be an HVAC unit in the bed, aka the vault. Elon immediately thought this was a great idea. It would mean people could sleep in the bed in a controlled climate. This was just one person asking one question. Imagine how many other ideas have been thought of from a huge team of engineers and designers that have been working on the project for years. We can only imagine. Tesla are doing a Model S delivery event. Supposedly, we're going to hear about some extra features of the Model S that were not previously mentioned. This is just a Model S update, not a new model. Therefore, would it not be expected that Tesla will hold a very similar event on the launch of the Cybertruck, where all the features of the Cybertruck are announced? Tesla like to keep a few aces up their sleeve. Except, there's a good chance this event will be on a much larger scale. Of course, this event will most likely occur well before the F-150 Lightning launch, and will likely persuade a number of F-150 pre-order consumers to jump ship to the real future. This alone will spark so much more publicity and energy into the Cybertruck that it will attract even more customers to pre-order. But also, it is likely the tax credit bill has passed at this stage too, so it will reawake consumers and suddenly put the Cybertruck back in the spotlight, only with this new subsidized price point. I think it unlikely that the single-motor Cybertruck will actually even be immediately available. Even without the tax credit, I thought it unlikely for some time. The quantity of pre-orders for the single-motor version was actually quite low compared to the tri-motor and dual-motor. In fact, the tri-motor demand is so high, Tesla may possibly just sell that to start with, as the profit margins will be significantly higher. However, the tri-motor does of course use more batteries than the dual-motor. In other words, Tesla could sell more Cybertrucks if they just started with the dual-motor sales first. This would mean less profit for Tesla, but it would mean that they get more cars out and secure their market share that much faster. The faster Tesla saturate the market, the harder it becomes for the competition to gain any market share. But if you add FSD and perhaps a solar option and some other available optional extras on the tri-motor, then it would actually no longer qualify for the tax credit. However, FSD is a software upgrade that can be purchased at any time during the ownership of the vehicle. So to get around this, if you exceed the $80,000 price cap for tax credits, simply order your tri-motor without FSD first and then upgrade it later. That way you should come in under the cap and have all the optional extras you require to. The dual motor is still an exceptional vehicle for what would now be under $40,000. There are no other pickup trucks that come close to it in performance and speed for that price. And those that do have similar performance require supercharged V8 engines with capacities of over 6 litres. In other words, the running cost on those cars are just stupid. The amount of gasoline they must require, well, let's just say that's some very special kind of love someone has for trucks to justify that expense. People's eyes are also starting to adjust more to the Cybertruck. Sure, on its launch, it was a highly polarised design that a lot of people just weren't expecting, but a lot of people are adapting to it and getting used to it. It's an instant head-turner and attracts crowds everywhere it goes. As people adjust to it more and it becomes an accepted vehicle in communities, I think there'll be a collective acceptance of the design, thus resulting in more people turning to the future of pickup trucks. It would nearly start at the same price as the most basic entry-level ICE Ford F-150. If you factor in no servicing or gasoline, then it's significantly cheaper, not to mention the unlikelihood of the Cybertruck depreciating anytime soon. In fact, it will likely be worth more as soon as you purchase it. Quite rare for a new car purchase. But there are going to be other catalysts coming too that will also increase the waiting list. We've seen what impact the F-150 Lightning had on the Cybertruck pre-orders. Well, we also have the Hummer unveiled soon too. Again, this will likely further add to the Cybertruck waiting list. The Hummer launch will actually likely add more pre-orders to Cybertruck than the Hummer itself. Thanks, GM. This is due to the fact that the Hummer is going to be a very expensive automobile, priced well above the Cybertruck, but nonetheless, GM will make a lot of noise about it, which will gain more attention to EVs. This is GM's first all-electric vehicle aside from the Bolt, but this is the vehicle to prove that GM has what it takes to make it in the EV industry too. They're using one of their most popular brands to do it, but not just popular, expensive. The Hummer has always been an expensive automobile, and it makes sense to stick with the more upper market brands, as they have this enormous cost of batteries to compensate for, and don't want to lose too much money. So they release an expensive model that few people can afford. This will also prevent the Osborne effect to their other vehicles. They will over-advertise it because it's not the Hummer they are advertising, but their ability of building an EV, or at least attempting to convince consumers, or namely their stockholders, that they are capable of the job. The Cybertruck will be the most anticipated vehicle launch since I can remember, and Tesla won't let us down. Whatever they bring, you can bet will blow us away. Once they actually start delivering, then the stock price will likely jump. It's Tesla though, and you never can tell, but I really think when Cybertrucks are being delivered, or even coming off the line, it should have a major impact on the Tesla stock price. It shows that Tesla really are capable of achieving what they set out. It renews our faith in all other elaborate missions, from FSD to robotaxis, from 4680 batteries to energy storage. It will be some renewed energy back into the stock price. Of course, hopefully by this stage, we've already seen Model Ys coming off the line from Berlin and Texas too. So yeah, if you were ever considering a Cybertruck one day, particularly now it's likely to be so much cheaper, I would suggest placing your reservation in sooner than later. It's only $100 and refundable at that, before the pre-orders start to get too crazy. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.